Hello and welcome to my podcast. Do me a favor, subscribe to the John Keim Report wherever you get your podcast. You're watching on YouTube. Hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. You can find us there as part of Ampire Media, Ampire. Always much appreciated when you tune in. And of course, you can read my work on ESPN.com. I have a story up now. I have multiple stories up now, but one of them is on the impact of Zach Ertz and Austin Eckler on Jayden Daniels and just what they have left, what they can still offer, how. Listen, we know they're getting older, but how can that wisdom help them? And also, Ertz told me that this is the best he has felt in 4 years. I'm going to play the interview, about a 5-minute interview I had with him for you club members. So, look for that on Thursday. Anyway, speaking of club members, I'm going to be doing the private Zoom session with Santana Moss for you gold members on Friday night. That time will be determined by Thursday. So probably around 7:30. Anyway, so you gold members, if you want to become one, go to the Empire Media YouTube page, click the word join, then choose your membership. There you go. Anyway, let's get to the good stuff. So today I'm going to be joined by several of my beat reporter colleagues, Nikki Javala from the Washington Post, Ben Standig from The Athletic and the Last Man Standing podcast, also on Ampire, Mitch Tisler from Monumental and the Beltway Football podcast, and also JP Finlay, also with Monumental, 106.7, NBC Sports. He joins us later in the show. So we just do a season preview, really good stuff, good insight from the people who are out there every day and who've been out there for many years. So anyways, stay tuned for that. A couple of things to clear up before, just to let you know, before I get to the show. You have already heard the news about Sam Cosmi with a 4-year extension, worth up to $74 million, $45 million guaranteed, a very good deal for a very good player. Cosmi was an ascending player by the end of last year. The move to guard really suited him very well. And I think he's a guy that feels like his arrow continues to point up. I think he's going to be one of the better guards in the NFL by the time this season ends. I think he's pretty much getting there already, but I think by the time the season ends, that's where he'll be mentioned because I think he's that good. And it's not surprising to me that this is the guy that they chose, the veteran who's still here, chose to extend. And so he clearly fits in their plans. Going forward, get it done. Very smart move. Oh, now let's get to on the field right now. Some injury updates just about Sunday. Johnny Newton was out there. We saw him going through some drills. He was listed as limited, but Dan Quinn said he expected him to practice today and then be a little bit more limited on Thursday and then do more on Friday and then make a determination as to what they think he can do, if anything, for Sunday. He hasn't been out there that much, folks. I think this is asking a lot to have him go, but we'll see. I'm not a doctor, don't know, but I do know in the past, if a guy's missed not just the summer, but he missed a lot of the spring too because of the injuries. And so we'll see where he goes. But did get some video of him going through some early practice stuff, and I'll post that on here later. And then with Brandon Coleman, he was another full go. I don't know what to expect for him. I think this is, again, you look at this, he hasn't played. And so, but he's at least practiced. His was an upper body injury. With Newton, it was a soft tissue, upper body injury. So at least for Coleman, he could go through a lot of the walkthroughs. He could go through a lot of the stuff that they're putting in, but it's still different going up against guys in the game at full speed when you're having to make adjustments on the fly. So this is why you have Cornelius Lucas, and you know that if Coleman goes out there in that first game, that Todd Bowles is going to throw some stuff at him to really put him in a bind. How would he handle that? That's why, to me, it makes sense if you go with Lucas. I don't know yet what they're going to do, but they really feel good about Coleman and what he knows and what he's learned. He's a smart guy that can offset some of the problems. And he was out there in the spring, at least, unlike Newton, but it's still, he hasn't been out there that much. It would be asking a lot for him to do it. If he can do it, that's great for them. So anyway, those are just some of the quick updates. Got a lot of stuff in the locker room, but I'm going to be talking about some of that stuff for a podcast on Saturday, getting you ready for the weekend. I'll have Jenna Lane, my ESPN colleague in Tampa. She'll be on Friday morning, just getting you ready, just informing you about the Buccaneers and what they think down there about Jayden Daniels. So anyway, got all that stuff. So stay tuned for my beat reporting colleagues. Here you go. Here's Nikki Javala, Ben Standig, JP Finlay, and Mitch Tisler. Here you go. Let's have fun. All right, everyone. So I wanted to bring the reporters back, the beat reporters back, who cover the team, or are there on a daily basis, who know more. And I figured it was a long past due and that Ben and Nikki finally made up after the last go round in the spring, where I think, Ben, how long were you in the hospital after that one?
The physical hospital or the mental ward. It was split kind of evenly.
So I wasn't sure if I should put you guys side by side here, but anyways, it's all good. So, but I want to do a season preview. Get your thoughts on things. JP Finlay might join us. If you're watching us on YouTube, you can see Mitch Tisler in the upper corner. Nikki's there and Ben's there. And again, JP may join. Sam was invited, unable to show up. So I think it's, we'll give a shout out to his mom, who always likes to listen when he's on, but we'll see. Anyway, so let's get to the season preview stuff. I am curious, going around the horn here a little bit. Just what are your expectations for this team? Let's start with Mitch. By the way, you can listen to Mitch and JP on the Beltway football podcast. Still the same thing going on. How long you guys been doing that now, Mitch?
This will be, I think, our 8th season.
Wow.
Probably coming up. 7th season coming up. It's yeah, long running program.
There you go. So what your expectations for this team going into the season?
Yeah, I mean, I think to expect that this team is going to be, this year's Houston Texans, I think might be a little bit of a step beyond, but I think as a whole, you're going to see just a more prepared team kind of week to week. I think the coaching difference is going to be pretty major, particularly when you talk about the secondary and the offensive line. I think those were two places that took pretty big steps up in the coaching ranks year over year. And I think Jayden's going to be impressive as a rookie. I mean, I think you got to be realistic about kind of the talent that's around him, both offensive line and positionally. But I think he's gonna show to be a prepared, good quarterback, and he'll be a building block piece for this team. Ultimately, I think they probably finish with 7 or 8 wins and give a nice stepping stone for where Dan Quinn wants to go from here.
Nikki, and by the way, you can read Nikki's 27 stories over the last week and a half in the Washington Post. Nikki, what are your expectations?
Yeah, can I reframe it to be more of like what the goal should be this season? Because I feel like so many times we go into a season and like, yeah, I'm going to anyway. I feel like we go into a season, it's like I think the secondary will be better and it's not. But I think the goal, and I say this, and no, I don't mean this in a snarky way, which is rare for me, but like I think the goal should be competency over where they were last season and going 4-13 and just looking like they're total disarray in all 3 phases. It does, as Mitch said, this team does look much better coached. You can see some player development. You can see the communication. You can see guys being on the same page. You see guys playing like they know what's going on. And I don't mean to set the bar lower than, what people want, but I think for a team that is truly rebuilding, don't give me that recalibration nonsense. It's a rebuild. They gutted the place. That's what you have to expect, is to have all these new guys on the same page and to win. So I think an 8-9 win season would be really great for this team, for this franchise, given where they were. I know the ultimate goal is to be higher, but given so many new pieces and so many remaining holes to fill, I think that would be a success in my book.
I think that would be a grand success. They got to 9 wins. I mean, I think you might be throwing a parade on Constitution Avenue if they can get to 9, just because I think there's so many unknowns left to find out here that would represent a hell of a year. And it would mean that Jayden Daniels is probably a really, really good quarterback right away. But we'll get to some more of that in a minute.
People do say I'm an optimist, so there you go.
I was shocked that you were more optimistic than I was.
Yeah, well, I mean,
you're welcome.
Listen, in between posting pictures of her baby on Instagram, she is, still doing all this. So I think she, knows a little bit. Ben, Last Man Standing podcast, also on Ampire. What do you say?
Yeah, maybe I am lowering the bar too much, but for me, yeah, obviously wins matter, and you'll likely ask us for a specific prediction later and all that. And obviously fans are tired of not making the playoffs and not being involved and all that. I get that. But to me, if I'm being honest about what I think is the bar for success, it is that Jayden Daniels looks the part and that this group is competitive. And I know competitive this is not like we're, the participation trophies, But, obviously last year was a bit of a joke. And most years it's always been like, when the S hits the fan, they're going to lose. Like that's just the way that it's been, no playoff wins since 2005, no winning record since 2016. And the whole, I think half the point of what they did with this offseason was if they were really trying to quote unquote win games, meaning like try to get the 10 wins, like purposely, they would have gone out and done more, spent more money, whatever. They didn't do that. They brought in guys like your Bobby Wagner's, your Zach Ertz's, and so on, not to mention drafted like every team captain that was in the draft, basically, because they are trying to reset what it is to be a person who plays for this team. They're trying to establish, because the problem historically has been either they bring in mercenaries. That was more of the Dan Snyder early session. They bring these mercenaries who help define the tone in there, which was selfish, or they just had constant changes with the coaching staff. So there has not been any kind of standard here forever, and I think that was legitimately half their purpose. So, like I said, if they can do those two things, then I think this is a success. And the next year you build on top of Jayden Daniels and so on. I'm still eyeing the Vegas line like 6-7 wins, but that's kind of what I would see is like what I would accept to be as a good season, even if I get it. People don't want to hear about 6 and 7 wins.
Well, and I personally, if Daniels becomes a success, whatever the record is, whether it's 6 wins, 7 wins, 8 wins, this season's a success because you got your guy going forward. I mean, it's obviously you want to get 9. If they go 8 wins and it's because Mariota comes in and does something, which I don't think any of us would expect. But if that happens, then I think you don't want to be looking for that guy again after this year. You want to know that this is the guy. And I think they kind of feel that way right now anyways. So, but let's go to Jayden Daniels. And you can either do expectations or what should their goals with him be? How's that, Nikki? So you want to start with this one, Nikki?
Yeah, I'm going to stick with the question. I'm going to stick with the expectations just to appease you. God forbid we change anything. No, I mean, I do think he's looked really good in camp. He's probably exceeded my expectations, but I do think everything needs a bit of context, though. I mean, what we see is only a fraction of what is really going on. But I think in that he hasn't really looked like your typical rookie quarterback. And we've seen a number of quarterbacks come through here, and he does not look like any of them, which should only be good news to fans and readers and whatnot. But, that's not to say that he won't face some of the typical rookie hurdles. Maybe he won't. Maybe he is sort of a unicorn, but more than likely he'll face some of these hurdles, when he's facing the top defenses and, the bullets are flying. But he does have all sort of the tangibles and intangibles that you would want in the position. Like he is incredibly even keeled. Like it doesn't look like anything phases him. And granted, it's only training camp, it's preseason, this is the happiest time of year, but there is a lot of pressure on this kid, and it doesn't seem to phase him. And maybe this is the NIL world that's better preparing a lot of these players because they're stars coming in, not to say others weren't, but like financially and, in terms of the just celebrity, they're stars coming in. So it's almost like they're better prepared for the pressure. But yeah, I think they might have, their guy going forward. You hope that's the case. I think we've seen enough in this franchise alone that, you'd be foolish to say that right out of the gate. So
you have no idea that I would agree with that statement, Mitch.
Yeah, I mean, to Nikki's point, I think the even keeledness of him, I think, helps so much. And coming out of college, there were so many people that were calling his age a detractor, and the fact that he was 23 and played in college for 5 years or whatever it was. He's mature. He's the most mature rookie quarterback we've seen in Washington since I started covering the team in the early 2000s, and I think that goes a long way for him. And as far as specific numbers, like I don't want to say he's got to throw for 3,000 yards for this thing to be successful. I think you just want to see kind of a general upward trajectory. You're going to see a kid who's going to have up games and down games, but you want to see as the season goes on the bad games not be as bad as the bad games earlier in the season, and hopefully the good games are getting better. And if you kind of are just tracking it, watching him move up, and I think you can look a lot at what Sam Howell did last year and kind of compare the two. And that early on, there was a lot of variance between the good and the bad. But as we got to the middle of the season, it plateaued big time, or even maybe went down, if we're being honest with ourselves. And I think that's where you need to see a difference with Jayden. And I think that's kind of how you'll get a better feel for where he is at the end of the year, if you just kind of see that general progression game after game.
Ben?
Yeah, I agree with all the stuff about the temperament maturity, so I won't double down on that. But the biggest play of the preseason ultimately was the in the first game where he audibles out of the third down on what was going to be a screen pass because they had the fourth tackle and a guard at the other tackle, so they're trying not to have him killed, and he checked out and threw the 42-yard bomb to Diami. And I think, to me, even though we dismissed preseason appropriately, I think that play said so much about this kid in that his first drive as a pro, his first third down, and he audibles out of the play that the staff told him to and then delivered the play. It says to me that he's not afraid of the moment. And I think that literally half the time, whether it's talking about quarterback or any rookie coming into any professional league, the confidence can easily get sidetracked even before you take a hit because you just get it's the moment is too big. And that to me said the moment is not too big for him. Now, maybe that changes when Dexter Lawrence and Micah Parsons and others are coming at him, but I don't think that's going to happen. That doesn't mean they're going to the Super Bowl or he's going to Canton, but it says that they've got a real fighting shot for him to be pretty good quickly because of that mentality on top of his athletic skills. And, his decision-making in the pocket has stood out, etc. He's got to, avoid the big hits. But other than that, I think that to me said a lot about where he's at as much as anything else we saw this summer.
I like the fact that he started 55 games in college. I think that plays to your point. And the other thing I like along with that play, Ben, in the preseason was there are other times where blitzes are coming. He's not getting hit. He's getting rid of the ball. So I felt like he took made some ordinary plays that are really the ones you have to make to survive in this league, but also to move the ball. And his accuracy, his ball placement, I think was really good. I think the best thing that I saw from him or heard about him was all the stuff he's doing behind the scenes. And Mitch, this, we've been around a while. I didn't realize you were as old as I am, but that's nice to know. But I think the best thing is what you're hearing about him. And you don't always hear that about the young quarterbacks, the work that he puts in, which to me gives him a shot that's where he's going to max out because of that work. So, it's funny. I was talking to Zach Ertz about this last week, and he feels like he's going to be good immediately. And, I know teammates are going to say stuff, but sometimes when they're going a little bit more, I think some of these guys have been burned before. Terry McLaurin has been burned by these young quarterbacks and what they might be able to do or what, the rhythm, the chemistry he might develop with them. And I think he gets tired of talking about that. But I think in some cases with Daniels, they're having a harder time containing some of that. So I think he's going to be good. But the question though is, do they have enough around him? And I think that's to me the big question. So let's go to that one. Do they have enough around him, Ben?
Probably not. I mean, I didn't have an issue with the Jahan Dotson trade based on the Jahan Dotson that they were getting and the value that they got back. But I mean, realistically, right, they have one receiver that we know would start for other teams, and everybody else is sort of a role player who can do specific things, but you're not going, well, that guy is an obvious starter. Zach Ertz has looked pretty good this summer. He's also missed a ton of games the last 2 years with injuries. I think the running backs are obviously going to be the strength of this offense. I think Brian Robinson's positioned to have a good year, but there's big questions at tackle, whether Brandon Coleman is able to go week one or not. And, that's going to be the part. I think this is where the coaching staff is really going to have to do their best work. Kingsbury is going to have to know when's the right time to have certain receivers come in with what the plays he's looking to do. They almost can't afford an injury anywhere, right? I mean, there's nothing behind Robinson, McLaurin, or almost anybody on the offensive line that's going to make you feel good if one of those starters goes out. So I think that's definitely a question. In fact, for The Athletic, we just had a story go up where each beat writer had to list the biggest concern, and that was my concern, that they don't have enough around him, which is, by the way, different than saying that Adam Peters screwed up. I'm just saying, they can't, they couldn't fix everything in a year. And we'll see if Luke McCaffrey steps up, then maybe that's helps the receiver room, that type of deal. But yeah, that would be, I would probably say they do not, but they've got to figure out a way to obviously protect him and make the offense as simple as possible for him, for not just for him, but for the receivers and others to be able to use their skills.
Ben, you should call some agents, see what they think about the GMs and Adam Peters in particular. Nikki, what do you think?
I agree. I mean, I don't think he has enough help around him in the skill positions. I think Zach Ertz has looked good. I think Austin Eckler has looked good, but God forbid, and I don't want to wish this upon anybody, but if for any reason they can't go, then what are they really left with on that offense? Like, we've seen that De'Ami's looked really good in camp. He's also had really good camps in the past and has not translated it to a season yet. You hope he can this season. But you take out the two veterans there and you got Terry and B-Rob. And that's a concern to me. Does he have enough help in the skill positions? Does he have bigger targets? To me, the receivers are pretty much all the same size. Like, even with the addition of Noah Brown. But maybe they'll surprise me. And then the O-line, a lot of attention has been on the tackles, and rightfully so. I still think that's a glaring concern, both sides, not just the left side. But I think depth is an issue too. There have been so many seasons here, especially, where we've seen them get down to their fourth, fifth center. I don't know that I would feel fully comfortable if they had to go from the starting five to a couple of reserves at any positions. I feel like, there are some concerns, obviously, with the starting five on the edges, and then to go to the reserves, it would fall off quite a bit. With any quarterback, with especially a rookie quarterback, that's a huge concern to me. So, as Ben said, I think they've done a lot of positive things to the roster. You can't change everything, but there are some glaring concerns there for me.
Mitchell T.
Yeah, I mean, certainly the injury concerns are across the board, both offense and defense, to be honest. But for me, first of all, I think Zach Ertz he's been so quiet in camp, and the fact that he didn't play in the preseason, I don't think nationally folks are looking at him kind of in any way, shape, or form. And I think he's going to be a big part to this offense, particularly early in the season. I think both his size and his ability to work the middle of the field and just be kind of an outlet for Jayden is going to be very important. And obviously his injury questions are going to be the questions. For the rest of the group, though, I put a lot of it on Cliff Kingsbury, because you're going into the season and you know what your strengths are, Terry McLaurin, and you B-Rob, and you know what your weaknesses are, essentially everything else. And it's going to be up to him to design an offense that can work with this group. And certainly the tackles are a concern. We don't know what we know. We don't know what we don't know with Brandon Coleman. Nick Allegretti was up and down in camp and up and down in the preseason. That's certainly something that I don't want to gloss over, because with a rookie left tackle and if your left guard struggles, that makes things that much worse. But I do think you can design an offense that can work with your group. And it's going to be about taking advantage of players in their situations, getting the ball out quickly for Jayden, doing all those different things. And you can look at what Eric Bieniemy kind of did last year, which was, my offense works and I'm going to jam this square peg into a circle hole until you break. And obviously that didn't work out. And I am hoping that we're going to enter this year and Cliff is going to have a little more creativity with these guys and a little bit more, help with the tight ends and the running backs and passing, as well as helping Jayden with, a bunch of quick plays and getting the ball into Terry's hand early in games instead of waiting till the second half to get your, most dynamic player the ball. So it'll be interesting to see, but I do think that the depth is a big question, but I think you can kind of scheme your way out of it a little bit if you're creative.
I think I agree. I think with the line, especially, I'm curious to see how the scheme impacts them and just how quickly, if Daniels getting rid of the ball quickly, you saw in the preseason guys missing blocks and you're not noticing it as much because it's not hurting them as much. So that's going to be a big key to there, and then how they run the ball. And so let me ask you, what are you guys buying and selling here? Here's what we've heard coming out of camp. B-Rob could be one of the best backs in the league, right? Corners, they feel good about them. Ertz and Eckler, a lot left, and I actually thought Ertz looked really good this summer. In fact, when I was back in Cleveland this weekend, mom turned 90, shout out to my mom. And the big thing at the fantasy, I felt like, get Ertz because I thought he looked good enough. Like, he's a sneaky pick. I say late in your draft, maybe if he's still unclaimed after your draft, he's a guy to watch. So anyways, but what are you guys buying and what are you still selling after camp and going into the season? Sister Sunshine, you want to take that first?
Since this is a family friendly show, I won't say what I really think in response to that. I mean, I think there's a bit of both. Like, I believe when they say they believe in these guys because they didn't make any additional moves to change the room. But so, like, my only thought is, do they not fully know what they're getting? Because we've seen some of these guys longer than they have. I mean, yes, they're the experts. They do the film study. They can talk to everybody else. I don't want to like come off as like, oh, I know more than they do. I don't. But the cornerbacks room, really. I mean, like and that one's a little perplexing to me, just because we've seen throughout camp and preseason some of the issues they've had. But to that extent, like, I do think they believe they can develop them. I feel like every NFL coach believes they can fix something, everything, But that room's a concern for me. I just don't, you hope they're right and they can develop them and that group can improve. But from what we've seen so far and over the last year, 2 years, it just hasn't been there.
Ben?
Well, I'll buy this is rare for me to say, I'll buy the positive vibes. Like, I'm saying, like, I can see like 6 or 7 wins would be my guess. But the difference to me would be that, especially the guys who are returning, but really the whole place, I really do believe that these guys are having fun, that they are in a good mood. I'm not saying they're not working hard, but like, you see the way they like little things like Martavis Bryant gets a touchdown in the sideline kind of erupts for him. They really do seem to be buying into this Dan Quinn, I hate to use the word culture, but I can't think of something else at the moment. I don't have my thesaurus around. So like, I do buy that, and I do think that could be the type of thing that gets them, especially early in the season, maybe sneaks them an extra win or two somehow, because they're just flying around the ball to make an extra play. On the sell, now this is essentially not relevant anymore because Brandon Ayuk stayed with San Francisco, but I don't want to hear anybody if they start whatever they start 1-4 or the other receivers aren't there. I don't want to hear anybody saying they should have traded for Ayuk. That would have been insane. It would have been stupid. It would have gone against every single thing that Adam Peters has done to this point. The only way it would have made any sense would have been to trade Terry McLaurin for him, because paying 2 receivers at roughly $25 to $30 million is not how you win football games. And also, to the point earlier about sort of Jayden, not saying this will happen this year, but if he's the real guy, then you definitely don't have to spend as much at receiver. That's the whole point of having the big time quarterbacks, is that they make everybody else around them better. So you don't have to go out and spend at a position that is the most dependent on the entire offense, that even the good guys get 6 targets, 7 targets a game. So I don't want to hear that. What they need more receiver, we get that. Don't tell me they should have traded for Ayuk.
Ben just guaranteed that.
I really feel, Ben.
Well, Ben just guaranteed that every time something goes wrong with the receivers in the press box, we're going to tell him they should have traded for Ayuk, Ben.
I'm going to do that every single time.
I'll just send you guys the Ryan from The Office meme every time you do.
But JP just joined. But Mitch, I want to ask you, what are you buying? What are you selling? JP, you can think of your answers while Mitch talks.
First off, I can't believe Nikki and Ben missed out on wishing a happy birthday to Mama Keim. I mean, that was just rude of you guys. But we'll move on.
I did.
Did you?
Just not on this podcast.
Yeah,
no.
right, in your mind.
Yeah.
What I'm selling is, maybe it dovetails a little with Nikki, just kind of the defensive end group as a whole. I think that there is a higher floor there, but with the type of defense that I think we're going to see from Joe Witt, at least based on obviously what we saw in Dallas, it's so predicated on getting pressure to the quarterback to help out those corners who are left on an island maybe a little too often. The corners are an issue. I think we all know they're an issue, but I think getting pressure on the quarterback is going to be that much more important this year than even in past years. And, maybe they'll rush a little more, together, and you won't get the quarterbacks, releasing, but I'm also concerned that they're not going to be able to get to the quarterback and you're going to get big plays down the field. What I'm buying is, I think, the impact of Tyler Biadasz on this offense and how much he's going to help both the O-line Wow, Ben does not like that one.
No, I love that you went for an offensive line.
That's exactly, yeah.
Listen, I think Biotis makes a huge difference with this offense, both having a rookie quarterback and, a questionable rest of the offensive line. You need somebody who's going to put these guys in order. And we saw how bad it was with Nick Gates when he and Sam Howell weren't able to get on the same page as far as what the O-line was supposed to do and the number of free rushers that were going at him. I think that you're going to have a good 1-2 punch catcher pitcher group between Biotis and Jayden, and they're going to at least have the guys in position to make the block, so you're not having these free rushers that are coming clean at him, and it's going to be up to Jayden and the rest of those guys to execute, but you can't execute if you're not in the right position to start.
JP, thank you for coming on.
No problem.
So what are you buying about this team? What are you selling? There's a lot of stuff that's been coming out here this summer. What are you buying? What are you selling?
I'm selling Standing's theory that you can't pay 2 wideouts and win in this league. I don't think they should have traded for Ayuk, but there are good teams paying 2 wideouts. The Niners being one of them, the Dolphins, the Eagles. That there is a path where you do that. Anyway, specific to this team, what am I buying? I've been high on this for a while. I think Zach Ertz is poised to have a big season, man, and who knows if he can stay healthy? I get the age questions, but the way he runs routes and uses his body to get open, and the way Jayden seems to look for him, and the way those two, and we've all seen it countless times, how like the in-depth conversations they have about where routes should go and what to do in the red zone. I think McCaffrey and Sennett will come on for this team kind of in the second half of the season. I think they got to see some game speed, and I think Luke's still like converting to wide receiver in a lot of ways.
Mm-hmm.
I'm selling the secondary. I think Samerstill looks like an absolute star, like the kind of guy that this team will love. But I just worry about it. We have seen BSJ be good, but he wasn't last year. Forbes obviously really struggled. I mean, that secondary, the amount of coverage breakdowns. I like Chin a lot up near the box. I feel like Jeremy Chin in a role similar to like what they figured out for Landon Collins works, but I just worry about coverage issues. And I know Quinn and Witt are known to fix it, so hopefully they'll prove to be those guys and things will look differently. But that's probably the position group that concerns me most.
I should throw a caveat that when I was talking about the cornerbacks, I was talking about the outside guys. Like I agree that Sanders still isn't. Yeah. He's a beast. Like he is, because he can play anywhere and he plays it so well, which is remarkable for having played the position for all of 2 years.
And he's so physical for his size.
Physical.
I buy him. I agree. I buy him, and I think it's good that he has the number 0 because it represents the number of untainted national championships by his school. Anyway, but I buy Brian Robinson having a good year, and I'm not yet buying the outside corners. I'll just keep it there. Last thing, we only got about 5 minutes here. Wins, do they contend / make the playoffs? JP.
Glad I joined for this part.
7-0. What would it take for them to make the playoffs?
Well, dude, with the expanded wild card and everything, if you're like 2 games below 500 in mid-December, you're probably still on the graphic, honestly.
Yep.
I don't think they contend for the playoffs. I think this is a 7-win team. I think they could improve a lot from last year. But I think the organization reminded you that this is phase 1 of a rebuild with the Dotson trade and some of the moves we've seen over the last 2 weeks. I think they can improve a ton. The biggest thing is Jayden to prove he's the guy.
Yep. Nikki?
I agree with that. I think 7 wins, maybe.
You had him at 12 earlier.
Yeah,
I said it would be considered a success if they reached as much as.
I thought they were going to the second Super Bowl, Nikki.
Jeez.
They haven't won 12.
This is what I deal with every day.
So, anyways, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I think 7 wins. I could see the 7 wins, but I do think they show like market improvement with Jayden understand. Like I think just him leading the offense will show, like I said before, competency, which is what they need more than competency, obviously, with him. So I think just that show that you're going in the right direction. And I think the offense will be again, ever the optimist over here. I think the offense will be probably more productive than, what we saw in training camp from preseason.
Ben?
There you go.
Do you have a breaking news like sound here? Because I'm asking because
What, are
JP
you-
apparently broke news that the 49ers have paid 2 wide receivers a lot of money. Last time I checked, it's only one. Debo's probably out, but we'll see. Anyway, I did like JP's good name would be still on the graphic. I like that. I don't know if it's a fantasy team or a band or something, but I like that. Look, I've been saying like 6 wins, but when I look at the schedule, like obviously you can't predict the schedule. I mean, even if we all are going to do it on some level, but they definitely have a lot of, you got a last place schedule. There's a lot of games that could be winnable, even just in the first half of the year. So I'll go 7 just from that perspective. I mean, I like I said before, as long as Jayden looks the part and the team shows more of a fighting attitude. I don't mean literally punching, but like, competitive. That to me is success. So I'll go 7 and just, I'm excited to see what Jayden can does because obviously we've seen nothing but bad quarterbacking play for a long time.
Mitch?
Yeah, I'll go one up from you guys. I'll get them at 8 wins, but like you guys, I don't think they're in the playoffs. I do think they're in the discussion. But I think we all would caveat it with if Jayden Daniels turns out to have a CJ Stroud-esque season. I mean, this thing they could get to double-digit wins here. I'm not saying that they will, but if he's a star, they could. Ultimately, kind of like the start of the Ron Rivera thing. If they make the playoffs this year, I think that's not necessarily great long term when you look at the way this roster is constructed and what they've obviously done this year. So I think 8 wins, be on the cusp, kind of take that next step, and then hopefully next season they're able to add a lot more pieces because this roster still has a bunch of holes.
I like the 7, but I think the arrow is pointing up. I think Jayden has a really good year, and they can scratch that one off the list, the list of needs for them for a while. So that's what I would say. Real quick, we got a lightning round here. Does Jayden throw more than 20 touchdown passes this year?
Yes.
Yes.
Anybody say no? More than 25?
Yes.
He'll run for
Yes.
too many, so I'll say no.
You say yes, Nikki?
You're saying throw for 25, right?
Yeah, not run.
Total.
Yeah.
I'm going to take the over. Yeah.
JP?
I just under. Give me 24.
All right. How many combined touchdowns for him?
34 combined touchdowns.
Wow.
Reggie Miller, 31.
I was gonna go 30.
How many would Steven Montez have
30.
had?
45 at least.
All right. I'll say 31 for that too. I like that number. So
By,
all right.
by the way, for what it's worth, if he gets 26 touchdown passes, that would have been top 10 last year. So for what it's worth.
All right. Good to know. Appreciate the research.
Down league-wide.
All right. Anyways, you guys, thank you very much for coming on. JP, thanks for jumping on late. So thank you guys, and I'll see you out there when I see you. I guess we're out there on Wednesday. So thanks, guys. That's it for this episode. Thanks to Nikki, Ben, JP, and Mitch for joining me. Give them a follow on all the social media platforms. Give them a listen to, give them a read, all that good stuff. Anyways, and thanks to you, as always, for tuning in. I'll be back on Friday morning with ESPN's Jenna Lane talking about the Buccaneers and a few things that I maybe learned from the locker room on Thursday. So talk to you next time.